So Mayor Eric Adams, he is just dumping millions and millions of dollars onto these prepaid debit cards that are supposed to save the city hundreds of thousands of dollars and provide fresh food. But there's nothing to substantiate any of this. No savings, fresh versus not fresh. Can you even buy the daily food requirements needed with this debit card? What's it being spent on? We have no idea, but it's just getting more and more out of control. Let's get into it. Here we go. Here's a quick video bringing us up to speed.
Migrant families. The cards are meant to pay for food and baby supplies, but critics, well, they're worried about fraud and misused funds. However, the city is showing that the program is actually helping alleviate the financial burden of caring for asylum seekers. Good Day's Jessica Formoso has more.
The city is expanding a program providing migrant families with debit cards to buy food and baby essentials. About 3 months ago, the Adams administration started testing out the program with a small group of families with children staying at city-run shelters. It started at 3 hotels. About 3,000 people received the cards. Now 7,300 prepaid cards will be distributed. In a statement, New York City Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services, 𝗪𝗓𝗧𝗛𝗓, says the program enables newly arriving families the ability to make choices for themselves and their children by using these cards, stating, quote, they can buy from local shops, support small businesses, and manage their own resources. When we empower people, we help them achieve self-sufficiency and access the American dream. It's excellent that we could go out and buy fresh food. 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗛𝗧 is a mother of 3. She arrived 9 months ago and has been staying at the Anchor Hotel in Queens, where she says the food is not fresh, and many times she ends up buying food outside. She hopes to obtain one of these cards.
So here's my huge beef with this. Instead of reworking an entire system and creating this debit card system and working with a no-bid contractor who's making hundreds of thousands of dollars off of this, possibly millions, by the time the program is done. This is a $53 million program. Instead of going through all of these gyrations because somebody isn't getting fresh food, how about you get a vendor in there that provides fresh food, right? I mean, every other program where they're delivering food to people who need it, they don't just recreate the program and then willy-nilly hand out debit cards for God knows what, because we don't know what it's being spent on. Now, the pitch is always, well, we've got these families with babies, because that's a heartfelt pitch, right? Oh, they got babies. They got to buy some diapers. Give them a debit card. They can get it on their own. But, that's not typically how this goes. Just give them a debit card that could be used on whatever, because then whomever has control of that debit card can use it, right? They can sell it. They can do all kinds of stuff with it. And so this whole notion that, well, we didn't have get some fresh food in there. You don't rework the system and create this teetering system of shenanigans just because somebody says they don't like their food. I haven't heard that it's inedible. I've just heard it's not that fresh. Okay, well, tell the vendor that they're not getting paid till they bring some fresh food up in this Anchor Inn, whatever it is, right? I mean, this isn't that hard to figure out. But so there was some motivation for this to be happening with the debit cards instead of the way that it normally does, which is, well, get somebody in here that can make it right.
Cards this time around. We don't eat here often because you can tell the food is not fresh. The cards provide families a 28-day allowance to purchase food and baby supplies at stores that sell groceries and convenience items. As of June 16th, since its launch, the program has helped 900 families. According to the city, the card cost half as much as it would cost to deliver boxes of food to families staying at hotels, saving the city so far over $598,000, and it's projected to save the city approximately $4 million on migrant spending by the end of this year alone.
Okay, but none of that has been substantiated. We have not seen the numbers. We don't know. We're just told that it's going to be about $600K in savings. It's the greatest concept ever. It's savings of what versus what? You know what I mean? Give us some actual definition. Give us the actual numbers. Maybe let us see, hey, since this is taxpayers' money, we should be transparent. What are they actually using these debit cards for? Make that transparent. We want to see, hey, if they're buying diapers, they're buying formula, they're buying whatever for their kids, I'm okay with that. But guaranteed with an open-ended debit card like this, that's not happening, right? I mean, you're going to have shenanigans in there. You just are.
But not everyone is in favor of this program, saying migrants are living for free at the expense of New York taxpayers.
We have no obligation to do anything. We have no obligation to house, feed, clothe these individuals. And as we've been saying for almost 2 years now, the things that the city are doing are creating incentives for these migrants to come here.
In Queens, I'm Jessica Formoso, Fox 5 News.
City is expanding its.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole deal is just so whacked, right? Oh, let's just give out a debit card. I mean, they're just gonna spend it on formula. And you're like, really? You're not going to trade it for who knows what? You're not going to give it to somebody? I mean, there's rackets being created and rackets designed already to use these debit cards in ways that they're not intended, right? I mean, handing out food. They've never done a debit card system where you just get carte blanche to do whatever. And that's why I think people are so upset, because there's zero transparency. You don't know what the actual savings is. Does this even make sense? Let's read this article. City's migrant debit card spending balloons as no-bid vendor rakes in a fortune. Now, you might say, well, that's because this vendor they're good friends with the New York City mayor's administration. Okay, yeah, it doesn't even sound like they were that tight. It's just that you got this company that's like, well, they're here and they support what we believe in. Let's do a little no bid contract with them and we'll just make this happen. In June, this reporter reported that after months of inactivity, City Hall had loaded up its migrant cash debit cards with another nearly 1.1 million in taxpayer money. Days later, the Adams administration confirmed Gotham taxpayers will spend 2.6 million through the end of the year to add 7,300 families to the existing program, which has served around 900 families since March. The city considers that pilot successful. You got the feeling that this was going to be successful no matter what. Just do it. Just do it. Just load the money up on there and do it. We got to do it. We just got to be successful. But it still wasn't, it hasn't released a whiff of data to prove it. A whiff of data. But all these news stories will go with, it's going to save almost $600,000. Really? Is it? Show us how. Well, that information hasn't been released yet. You're going to have to go talk to the comptroller of the supervisor of the bilateral, community activist meeting. I'm just making stuff up, but it feels like that's what they do as well. Just make stuff up. To the point where people are like, oh, okay, all right, $600K. Let me write that down. Let me report that in the news. Okay. In January, the city inked a no-bid 1-year deal with MOCAFI, a company that stands for something. We'll get to it. A company co-founded by an Adams supporter. Hey, I like you. I got this little company you might benefit from. New York City in general might benefit from. And they have benefited. The fees on this bad boy, it's like a credit card, right? So even if you think it's a good idea to be giving migrants cash cards instead of direct aid for meals and other basics, the way Mayor Eric Adams has gone about it is not the way to do it. 100% agree. In January, the city inked a no-bid 1-year deal with MOCAFI to distribute a potentially open-ended amount of money above $150 million to migrants staying at city hotels. City was in a hurry to sign the contract, but it took 3 months to start handing out these debit cards. We've been talking about them for a while. It was like February, March when that was going to come out, and now they're out. And the city is like, this is going so well that we're going to keep extending the program out. And I agree with was Staten Island at that Republican from the video there at the end, the guy who had the sunburn. He looked like he had a good 4th of July. He just got burned. Hey, man, put some sunscreen on. It'll really help save that skin. But anyway, he was saying we're under no obligation to do this. And when you build it, they will come. If you hand out the money, they will come. So there's no wonder that so many illegals are going to New York City. I mean, this is not shocking. And then you got city officials going, don't come here. We're not handing out resources. Now you are. You just expanded this program. I'm going to put 2 million on there. So through late June, the program racked up about $850,000 in costs, but only $648 went to the actual migrants. Here's where the fees get interesting. Instead, according to the contract, nearly $211,000 is owed or has been paid in fees to MOCAFI, the finance company, $62,000 for half a year setup fee, and 2 quarterly fees of $62,500 each, and stray fees for cards, $3.50 each, and a share of the money given to the migrants. They get 3% kickback. You get 3%. Send them out. Send out a lot of them. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. And, the CEO is just like, oh, good Lord, this is a payday right here. We didn't even have to bid for this job. We just showed up because support of Eric Adams. Oh, isn't he great? Isn't he awesome? He's just handing out money hand over fist. Hand over fist. But that's comparing apples to rotten oranges. The article says, yes, City Hall is paying $8 each for 3 meals a day to a different no-bid contractor under a deal it concealed for months, twice as much as the $4 per meal the MOCAFI debt card recipients get to spend. $4 per meal in New York City. I mean, who are we kidding here? In what world? Well, they got to buy fresh food. Okay, how much? Like a head of lettuce? I don't know. The whole thing is just so convoluted and doesn't make any sense. Plus, a big part of the comparison relies on a different assumption that migrants with no access to cooking facilities can successfully budget $4 per meal. The only way I know to make that work is that if you really stretch it out by cooking. Okay, so you get a big bag of rice, right? You get rice cooker. You go with that every single one of your meals. All right, but you don't have cooking facilities. So that's out. And you just take that and exponentially run that. And this doesn't make any sense. You're just like, what? $4 a meal? In what world can you live on that? I know you can stretch things out and you can get a lot of bang for your buck, but these folks are just going to the mini mart and buying stuff. That's what they're doing with the debit card. A real world example strains that assumption. The New York Times followed a family of 3 to a downtown bodega where they bought one day's lunch for $44 or close to $15 a piece. That sounds about right? All this talk of, well, we can go get some fresh food. Yeah, are you getting, carrots and lettuce and that's about it? Because they hand those out for almost free, but I don't think you're living on that. So you don't have any way to cook it. You're just going to gnaw on that raw carrot. I keep talking about carrots because I'm growing carrots and my carrots are not coming along. Carrots just take forever to grow. They're just annoying. Got that little stalk that's going up, but you're like, I hope a big carrot's in there. It's probably not. It's just, fooling you again. You're going to pull up just a little baby carrot, which is going to be great, but you need more of those, right? Sure. Maybe they'll save some of that food for dinner. From lunch? At 3 hungry people? No, it's gone. It's toast. You've eaten it, right? But Manhattan prepared food outlets aren't cheap. You know what's interesting is my son Kiernan was in Manhattan for hanging out there with a bunch of his friends. He's got friends that live there. Everybody wants to go to New York City from Seattle if you haven't been. And they live there. They're doing whatever millennial jobs and whatnot. My son said, relative to Seattle, Manhattan is cheap. Seattle is wildly expensive. It's just, it's shocking. You're like, what? Huh? Well, big city prices. But when your son comes back and says, yeah, actually the bodegas were a lot cheaper than what we're experiencing here. And he's literally over in Seattle. And I see that too. You know, you go to a mini mart and it's crazy how much you spend. Okay, that sandwich was, $12 and it's just kind of a homemade sandwich wrapped up in plastic. It's good. But you're like, okay, yeah, I should be getting like a real meal for that. I don't want to say a Denny's meal, maybe more like a Red Robin meal for that. But then you go to Red Robin and you're like, good Lord, everything on the menu is like $20. This isn't going to work. So I basically just stopped going out to eat because it's gotten so expensive. Every now and then it'll be kind of one of those occasions. All right, let's go do this. Let's go celebrate and make it more of a special occasion than what's going on. So these food costs, I'm not seeing it. $4 a meal. The city should release these reports. Where are people spending that MOCAFI money? That's what I would love to know. Just give us a spreadsheet. Just tell us where they spent it and what they spent it on roughly. Give us a category. Is it mostly on bodegas and other prepaid food outlets or at grocery stores? Such releases would protect against fraud, telling us whether people are spending their money on terms coded as acceptable under the program, that is food and baby supplies, because there's no limitations on what they can spend. They can just spend it on whatever. I mean, just talk about just mismanagement. I mean, it's like, what? And if they're spending it within the 5 boroughs, yeah, they talk about, oh, support local. By that, do you mean Brooklyn? Somewhere a little bit further away? We don't know because there's no constraints on it. The city's stance towards potential fraud is trust us. Even though there's massive scope for improper card dispersal, giving out cards to the wrong people, like city workers, card theft, illegal card transfers, and spending on items that aren't included in the program. I mean, just handing one of these cards out. Imagine handing out your card with, say, $100 on it to your teenage son and or daughter. Take your pick. I don't care. I don't want to be sexist here. Give it to one of those kids and just tell them, now, you can't spend it on candy. You can't spend it on chips. You can't spend it on pop. You can't go to the movies with it, but you can buy fresh food. You can buy fresh food. They're going to figure out some way where they're going to get what they want and how to do it and how to make it look okay. Or they're just going to say, you know what? Yeah, we're just buying whatever. Let's see how this goes. Mom might not check. Dad might not check. Let's just get some stuff. Yeah, I went to the grocery store. Can I see the receipt? Lost it. Finally, as New York enters the second half of this 1-year contract, what's the long-term plan? Where are we going with this? Because this is one of those expenses where everybody talks about, they're handing out millions of dollars in debit cards to the illegals. And they are. Literally, they are. So what's the long-term plan? Because this was started as a pilot project, right? Well, city officials say that the program is working. They're telling us it's working. Saving $600K a year. Oh yeah, this is good savings without any proof whatsoever. So indeed, since the city doesn't expect to spend the full $53 million it had budgeted this year, it's already thinking of requesting an extension to next year. Hey, this is working so good. Let's just keep rolling this out. We're all making good money here. Everybody's happy. Everybody's got their fresh food. Everybody's got their diapers. To me, it's like they're not spending the money on this kind of stuff. They're probably spending some on it, but can't you go places and get, basically all this stuff for free? All of the, folks I see standing in line and looking for food sources. I mean, you can get food. You just, in any community here in Bellevue, you can get decent food meals. I know Salvation Army by my house has them. Stand in line, show up. They give you a styrofoam thing and it's got some decent food in it. You can figure out food if you do just a little bit of, moving around and looking. And this whole notion that everything's stale and the food isn't good. Okay. But got to remember, like that Republican dude said, city's under no obligation to feed anybody. Hey, you came in illegally. Your first thing in the United States was to break a felony law and enter the country illegally. And now we're going to feed you. There's no obligation here. It's because these are virtue signaling sanctuary cities. And now let's hand out the debit card. We'll be talking about the debit card for years. Remember when they're handing out debit cards to the illegals as they came in the country? What about folks in New York City that live in the shelter system that aren't getting debit cards? I bet they'd like one. I bet everybody underneath the poverty level would love a debit card. Let's give them one too. Why not? I mean, they don't qualify, Sean. Why not? Why are we giving it to the people who came into the country illegally? Well, because they're running from a violent situation in Mexico. Their family was this, that, and the other thing. And guess what? The vast majority of these folks, they're not going to get asylum. They're not going to be able to get citizenship. They just don't meet the criteria. But let's go ahead and spin the wheels and spend millions and millions and millions of dollars until they have that court date where the judge says, no, you got to go back. Deport. You got to go back. Yeah, remain in Mexico. I mean, that's where all of this breaks down, right? Is that you're just putting people into the United States. You're just bringing them in because at one time that was considered to be just a genius way to handle the border, because during the Trump administration, he was tough on the border. You had the record low numbers of illegal, entries into the United States. Yeah. And then, Sleepy Joe wanted to just open things wide up, and he started by not building the wall. Just, that Trump guy, he was a horrible human being. And now you got millions of people coming into the country and all kinds of crazy shenanigans going on. Who would have thought? And then New York City just handing out debit cards willy-nilly because, why wouldn't we? Hey, this is a supporter of Adams administration. Let's sign them up. This MOCAFI company, such a small financial company, they've never done one of these contracts. They are not set up at all. They basically had to recreate the wheel from scratch on how they're going to put this system together. That's what they did. Hey, they're going to pay us? You betcha. 3% a card. I mean, there's some real money there, right? As it stands, MOCAFI remains the main beneficiary of a potentially massive new city-paid benefits program that is likely to persist as long as the migrant crisis stays. Yeah, that's what you got. Whole bunch of money being spent on who knows what, shenanigans happening, crimes against citizens happening. But don't worry, let's just fund the American dream. Even if they're not even going to become Americans, they don't really qualify for citizenship. Let's just spend the money. We'll just see what happens. That's literally where we sit. All right. So if if you enjoy seeing your tax money being spent like that, go ahead and keep supporting officials that made this happen. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next episode. Love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.